Okay, we're going to attempt to simplify this quite horrible Boolean expression here. Things I would start looking for in a Boolean expression would be obvious places to do the De Morgan's law, or obvious places that have some really clear identities in it. Identities are kind of like the quick tricks to reduce an expression. So that's what I can spot here. There is this identity there. So b plus 1 reduces, sorry, b or 1 reduces to 1. And then if this is 1, that basically means that we'll end up with an A or not A, which we know, again, reduces to 1. So then this whole term on the right here actually just reduces down to C. Quite how you write it in an exam is tricky, but not impossible. So let's have a go at writing that. When you're writing it out, be really careful that you don't miss any little not symbols. As you'll notice, the lines aren't very wide and it becomes quite tricky. So you will have to write small, especially for something like this. Also, I would recommend putting brackets around things. So especially if there's a long bar across the top, like this first big term here, that is a not of that whole expression. So if I'm rewriting it, let's try writing it nice and small here. Not A, or B and C, or B and not C, and then the whole thing has a not symbol over it, then I would put brackets around it, just so that you're reminded that that is separate from the next expression, which is just C. If you're doing it in the exam, you might want to write it out and then be really explicit about how you're reducing that down. So maybe put a cross and say a 1, and then a cross and say a 1, and then you'll just, as we go down, I would put the C just separately here. Okay, right, so approaching this kind of horrible big bracketed expression we've got here, which is that term. The first thing to do, if you've ever got one of those long bars, those long knots across it, is to look for where to do the De Morgan's law. So if you don't know De Morgan's law, it's break the line, change the sign. Don't write that in the exam, but that's essentially what you're doing with this Boolean algebra here. I would go for doing it here. So we'd separate out the A, the not A at the beginning. So writing that out, and I'm aware that I will run out of space, so I'm going to try and write it really slowly. We'll put the double not A on the outside, and we'll change that sign to a and then the rest, it's still going to be quite a long bar, so I will put a bracket there. Then we end up with B and C, or B and not C, brackets, and then put the rest of the bar across the top, and then we can just leave that as C because we've already reduced that term down. And then the next obvious place to do De Morgan's would be here. So I'm just going to put DM in the corner so that you know that's De Morgan's law. We can also reduce this down here, this double not A, to just A. So I'm going to just go ahead and write that now. Okay. So if we're breaking the line and changing the sign there, we still have a line here. So B dot C. Then that would change to a dot. And this would be B and not C. Okay. And then we still really can't do anything with it without like doing some more De Morgan's on these two here. So writing it out again, hopefully I don't run out of space. A and then keeping the brackets here. Got not B. Or not C, and then not B, and I'll leave the double bar there, but we know the next time we write it out we can just change that to a C. Right, then we end up with a little bit like in algebra, in normal maths, we've got 2 terms in a bracket multiplied by 2 more terms in a bracket, so you have to do the multiplying or in this case, anding each term with each other term in the bracket. So we end up with 4 different terms. So I'm going to leave the A on the outside again, and then and the first 2 B's together, and then the first B with the C, which is at the end there. Sorry, it's a not B. Let's get it right. Then I'm anding the not C with the not B. I'm writing it in alphabetical order just so you can see it. And then the last term is the C, not C, and C. And then still keeping that C at the end. Then we can again do some identities. That has now been reduced to not B. This is reduced to 0. So let's again just write it out one more time. Now you might make the mistake that you think these 2 terms that are left are the same, but they're not, because one's not C. Oh, sugar. Go back. There we go. And then, now you might go, oh, I know what I want to do. I want to use this A and kind of apply it to every single term in the brackets, but I would suggest you hold on. What I would do is take, because there's a common term now that of this B, not B, okay, which you can take out of the brackets, simplifying it down further. So we'd have A and then not B out of there. And then that would mean that was a 1. This would be a C. And this would be a not C plus C. Now, those of you who know your identities, if you've got 1 or anything, regardless of the fact it's C or not C, this whole thing, this whole term becomes 1. So you would end up with A not B times 1 plus C. So the final answer is A not B plus C. I think that's a lot of work for 4 marks. So there's probably a simpler way of doing it, but I think the approach is good. Look for identities. So look for identities first. Look for where you can do De Morgan's law. And then I would make sure you put brackets around nots.